Thank you, Bessie. On the foreign scene, Brazil is saying no, thank you, to a joint donation made by leaders at the G7 summit on Monday to help fight wildfires in the Amazon rainforest, as President Bolsonaro criticizes the leaders for their hypocrisy. Simon Pusey has that and more in Around the World in 5.
Good evening from the Channel's newsroom here in London. The Brazilian government has said it will reject an offer of aid from G7 countries to help tackle fires in the Amazon rainforest. Satellite data shows fires, mostly in the Amazon region, are burning at record levels. But Brazilian ministers say the money is not needed and accuse foreign powers of wanting to control the Amazon. Earlier, Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro met governors from states affected by the fires and was briefed on the efforts to address the situation. Mr. Bolsonaro, who has been engaged in a public row with the French President Emmanuel Macron in recent weeks, accused the French leader of launching unreasonable and gratuitous attacks against the Amazon region and hiding his intentions behind the idea of an alliance of G7 countries. It's after Mr. Macron, who hosted the G7 summit this weekend, said $22 million would be released immediately, primarily to pay for more firefighting planes, and that France would also offer concrete support with military in the region. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani has urged the United States to take the first step towards dialogue by lifting sanctions against Iran. Mr. Rouhani said, "Without this step, this lock will not be unlocked." He spoke a day after President Donald Trump said he was open to a meeting if the circumstances were right. Tensions between the US and Iran have escalated since Mr. Trump abandoned a deal limiting Iran's nuclear activities last year and reinstated sanctions. He wants a new agreement that would place indefinite curbs on Iran's nuclear program and also halt its development of ballistic missiles, something Iran has refused. Thailand's palace website crashed earlier after it released unprecedented pictures of the king's consort in a fighter jet, wearing a crop top and dressed in combat fatigues with him and the royal poodle. The unusually candid pictures of King Maha Vajiralongkorn's consort, 34-year-old Major General Sinit Wong Vajirapadki, were released along with her official biography. A palace official said the website was being fixed because of the volume of traffic. The palace has a policy of not commenting to media. The king named Sininat, a former nurse and his bodyguard, as royal noble consort on his birthday last month. It was the first such appointment in almost a century. Flash flooding caused by heavy hailstorms has swept through Madrid, transforming roads into rivers and bringing the city to a standstill. In the town of Arganda del Rey, near the capital, eyewitness footage captured cars and rubbish bins being swept away by the rushing flood waters. The Spanish subway department said on Twitter that several metro routes remained closed. Madrid's regional authorities said more than 1,000 calls were received by the emergency services during the hailstorm. In the capital, metro stations were flooded and drivers were trapped in their cars in the highways leading to the city. The UK's Brexit Party leader has offered British Prime Minister Boris Johnson the prospect of an electoral pact if he goes for a no-deal EU exit. However, Nigel Farage warned that if he tried to fudge Brexit, then he would face a battle over every seat at the next election. More than 3 years since the United Kingdom voted 52% to 48% to leave the European Union, Brexit has still not taken place. The UK is heading towards a constitutional crisis at home and a showdown with the EU, as Johnson has vowed to leave the bloc without a deal unless it agrees to renegotiate the divorce deal. Farage said there was more than a 50% chance of an election in the autumn, and that if Johnson opted for a clean break Brexit, then the Brexit Party would work with him.
In those circumstances, if Boris Johnson is prepared to do the right thing to win our independence, then we are prepared to do the right thing, and we would put country before party, and we would do it every time. We do it every time.
The Russian President Vladimir Putin has showed Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan an alternative to the F-35 US fighter jet in case the US completely cuts off Turkey from the program. It's after the US has suspended Turkey's participation in the F-35 program by stopping sourcing of parts from Turkish companies. Mr. Erdogan was showcased Russia's fifth-generation Sukhoi Su-57 stealth fighter jet. Surrounded by delegates and diplomats, Vladimir Putin also treated the Turkish president to an ice cream during his one-day visit to Russia. And finally, more than 4,000 rare tortoises that were smuggled into Russia have been released. The animals were set free in their natural habitat after Russian authorities foiled an attempt to smuggle them across the border from Kazakhstan. The tortoises were initially put into sacks and hidden with several tons of cabbages. Their value was estimated at around $100,000 US. And that's your international news around the world in 5.
Thank you, Simon. Still ahead on the news at 10, D Tigers coach Alex Nwora releases final roster of 12 players to represent Nigeria at the 2019 FIBA Basketball World Cup in China, which begins at the end of this week. Stay with us. It's now time for the sports news, and here is Olumide Macaulay.
Thank you, Laddie. Hello and welcome to Sports News. Team Nigeria have moved up to 4th on the medals board after adding 8 gold medals to its medal haul at the 2019 African Games. Folashade Lawal claimed 3 gold medals in women's weightlifting 59-kilogram snatch and clean jerk. Joy Eze also won 3 gold medals in the women's weightlifting 64 kg snatch and clean jerk. Chukwuebuka Enekwechi sets a new African record of 21.48 to win gold in men's shot put. Raymond Ekovo becomes the fastest man in Africa after posting a time of 9.96 seconds to earn gold in the men's 100. And Usherishe Isakiri, Abejoye Oyeni, Temi Lola Ogunriade and Shade Olatoye all won medals for Team Nigeria. In basketball, the Tigers coach Alex Nwora has released the final roster of 12 players that will represent Nigeria at the FIBA Basketball World Cup in China. The team is headlined by the captain, Ike Diogu, Minnesota Timberwolves shooting guard Josh Okoje, Orlando Magic forward Al-Farouk Aminu, and China-based Ekpe Udo. Others include Jordan Nwora, Vincent Namdi, Chimeze Metu of the San Antonio Spurs, Michael Eric, Ben Uzo, Zana Talib, and Stanley Okoye. The Tigers are in Group B, along with Russia, Argentina, and South Korea for basketball's biggest event. They will begin their campaign against the Russians on August the 31st. The Tunisian Football Federation have named Mandhir Kabir as new coach of the Carthage Eagles on a 3-year contract. The 49-year-old replaced the Frenchman Alain Kessere, who left the job despite Tunisia reaching the semi-finals of Africa Cup of Nations in Egypt. Kabir has served as coach of Tunisia's leading 3 teams, Club Africain, Esperance, and Etoile du Sahel, and had brief spells at each one and had been without a coaching job for the last 18 months. He will take charge of the 2004 African champions when they host Mauritania in 2 friendlies next week. British billionaire Jim Ratcliffe has completed the protracted takeover of OGC Nice and pledged investment to establish the French club in Europe. With his latest purchase, the 66-year-old adds to a sports portfolio that already includes the former Sky cycling team and Swiss club Lausanne Sport. Ratcliffe was given the all-clear to seal the deal by the French Competition Authority last week. Reports say Ratcliffe, who is Britain's 3rd richest man, paid 100 million euros for the club. Nice, founded in 1904 and managed by France World Cup winner Patrick Vieira. Former Manchester United forward Eric Cantona will be presented the 2019 UEFA President's Award in recognition of his playing career and commitment to charitable causes. The European football governing body said the 53-year-old Frenchman will receive the award in Monaco on Thursday during the Champions League group stage draw. Cantona won 4 Premier League titles in 5 years with Manchester United in the 90s and scored 64 goals for Old Trafford in 143 appearances. The former Marseille player supports the Common Goal Initiative, which funds football charities worldwide and contributes 1% of his annual salary to the project co-founded by Manchester United midfielder Juan Mata. Finally, former world number 1 Garbine Muguruza in tennis has crashed out of the U.S. Open in the first round after losing 2-6, 6-1, 6-3 to Allison Risk of the United States of America. His opponent's combination of controlled aggression and pinpoint accuracy continued to create chances throughout the first set. He rode the momentum roller coaster to the finish line for her second win against the Spaniard in 4 career meetings. That's it on Sports News. Laddie's back now with the rest of the news at 10.
And the main news again. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, today intensified its clampdown on internet fraudsters as it announced a collaboration with the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the FBI, following recent arrests made within and outside the country. Also today, the Lagos State House of Assembly inaugurated a committee to probe the purchase of 820 buses by former Governor Akinwumi Ambode's government. The lawmakers said they would investigate the cost of the buses which were bought despite the refusal of the Assembly to approve the procurement in the last 3 years' budget. That's tonight's news at 10. Thanks for being with us. I am Ladi Akiri Deluali. Good night.